Good evening. This is Jay Ray with Military Brat University, and we are celebrating birthday 246 for the United States Army. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. All right, that's it. For those that might know, that was my Lee Ermey impression. Lee Ermey was the drill instructor on Full Metal Jacket. So I don't know if you guys recall, on the 4th of July, in his rigid fashion, he decided to sing happy birthday to the United States. So what I'm going to do this evening is, in celebration of the United States Army's birthday, I'm going to not give you guys a history lesson on the Army overall. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the Army from a perspective of the tree from which I come. So I'm going to initially talk about my dad's Army experience, which then kind of overlaps into my becoming a military or Army brat in my case, and we'll go from there. Okay, so in December 1957, an undersized young man by about 17 years old, with braces, mind you, joined the Army. He actually dropped out of school to join the Army, which you could do at that time, and he was 17 years old. So, again, a skinny young man, about 130 pounds, a black man, by the way, with braces in 1957. Imagine that. And he joined the Army. And the good news for him is that some of the guys with whom he immediately became associated were guys that had been in college and had gotten drafted into the Korean War. And as college guys, excuse me, needless to say, education was important to them, and so they took this smallish guy from West Virginia under their wing and immediately set him about to finishing high school, which incidentally he ended up doing before his class. And then he was able to go back to his high school in uniform and walk with his class, which is pretty cool. And it has a lot to do with, one of the characteristics of most military men, which is a word or a term called stick-to-itiveness. So from there, he had what I would like to say was probably a very distinguished career by anybody's standards. Matter of fact, I'm having my evening cup of Java in my dad's mug, which, as you see, he is an airborne ranger in addition to being special forces. So let's talk about some of those things, some of those groups that he became a part of within the Army that were elite units, right? So my dad was a member of the 101st Airborne Division, also known as the Air Assault Division. He had 472 jumps. He put his knees in the breeze almost 500 times. Pretty neat accomplishment. In addition to that, he became a Ranger. And in addition to that, he was also a member of the Special Forces. This is actually his Ranger coin. Can you see that? Pretty cool. Oops. So, he kept that on him everywhere he went. Pretty neat thing about, well, I'll get into that later. So, in addition to serving in those elite units, my dad also did 3 tours in Vietnam, 1,000 days in country. Saw quite a bit of action. He didn't talk about it very much to me, or anybody else for that matter. The most that he would say was that what he chose to do was to remember the good times with his fellow soldiers in combat. My dad spent a total of 12 years in Germany, the last 5 of which were with us as a family and were his last 5 years in the Army. So, 1957 is when my immediate family, at least, began our journey in the military. April 9th, 1970 is when I became a military brat. The moment I breathed my first breath, I was already an Army brat. And like my fellow Army brats out there, I came out on the move. I was born April 9th, 1970 in Beckley, West Virginia. And within a month, we were in Alaska. From there, we made our way to Maryland. We were in New York. And then we made our way over to Germany for 5 years. So what I'd like to do at this point is for everybody either watching live or if you're watching later, a recorded version, sound off below and tell me what branch your mother or father served in. Also, if you happen to visit or live in another country, share that with me as well. I know people that have lived in Italy, Korea, Germany, London, all kinds of different places. So please sound off below with that. Also, did your parent or parents retire, or did they just have a tour of duty, of 4 to 6 years, maybe 10 years or so? Share that down below as well. So, while in Germany, that's actually where I started school, both nursery school, kindergarten, and my first 3 years of elementary were spent in Germany. And it was a really neat experience. Everybody's from elsewhere, right? And that immediately, before I even knew what it meant, gave me a worldview. Everything was designed within the Army to be inclusive, down to Armed Forces Radio. Armed Forces Radio did not have a format, as it were. You might hear 70s rock, 70s R&B, some funk, some classical. They played everything on Armed Forces Radio with a clear understanding that everybody within earshot may have had different tastes based on their upbringing, their personal geography, all kinds of neat things. But what it did for most of us is it gave us a very eclectic mix of music, which is a really important thing to me. So, my dad, being the guy that he was, that was, dedicated to duty and honor, he had an overdeveloped sense of right and wrong. And immediately upon retiring from the Army, what did he sign up for? More action, right? My dad went to work for ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and, kept fighting the good fight. So I'm perfectly aware of, what it means to have a cause or to find a cause and to become committed to that cause. In most cases, for the greater good. And today's been a tough day for me. Anytime there's something Army related, I think heavily about my dad, because he was just pro-Army. Pro-Army. So, again, what I'd like to do is I'd like to hear from some of you guys. I don't know if anybody's on live right now. Oh, I see. Okay. My dad was in the Army, stationed in Germany. Yeah, I have a deep, deep love in my heart for Germany. Anybody that knows me at all knows that about me. So I just wanted to take this time. I wanted to be brief tonight and give recognition to the Army and recognition and paying homage to my dad, for the time that he put into the Army from December of 1957 until March 31, 1979. So that's it. That's it. Happy birthday, Army. Thank you, Dad. Thank you to all of the soldiers out there. And for the record, I will be celebrating the birthday of each of the 5 major service branches: the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, and the Coast Guard. So on their birthdays, what I will do is I will commit to finding someone from those branches with whom I can speak on the day of that particular branch's birthday. Clearly, on the Army's birthday, there was no choice. There was no B. The only option was my dad. And since he's not here for me to talk with him, I saw fit to talk about him. Fair enough? Okay, well, guys, that's it. We're not having the usual half hour that we typically do, but I did want to take some time to give recognition on Flag Day, also known as the Army's birthday, June 14th, 1775. That's it for tonight. Thanks, Dad. And we'll see you next week with a full show. Have a great night, guys.